Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I have a spectacular, fantastic, amazing, wonderful human being on the show today. The guy's name is Doug Wing. His father is the inventor and founder of the Little Giant Ladder Company. And this is going to be fun. So stay with us. All right, and we are back, and I want to welcome my buddy Doug Wing to the show. Doug, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ken, how are you? Good morning. Sorry about the delay. We actually had this planned before, but I got sick.
You did. You're the only person I've known this year to get heat stroke. Was that what it was? A heat stroke or something?
Yeah, yes. It's been really hot here this summer in Utah, and I usually play golf once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And I played golf. It was real hot, and then a buddy called me and he said, "Hey, bring one of your cars. We're going to do a car show tonight. There's a car show in Salt Lake." So I went straight from golfing to this car show and was out in the sun for like 8-10 hours, and it
wow.
It's happened before, and the only cure for it is I had to go to the hospital and get some fluids.
And it's dehydration, right?
Yep. Yeah, I ate like one meal that day and didn't drink enough. So
yeah,
I just
hey, you know what? You're alive and doing well, and we are here today. So that's all that matters.
Yep, it's great to be on your show. Thank you so much.
I'm honored that you're here, man, because I know you don't do a lot of this, and we met through our mutual buddy Jeffrey Gittimer. And he's been saying, like, you need to get Doug Wing on your show. He's an amazing dude. So, but you know, I created this show to help people get unstuck, and it's been 2.5 years now. Jeffrey's wife was actually the very first guest on my show, Jennifer. And so, you know, let's start with you telling everybody where you were born and raised.
Well, I was born in Germany, and I guess the reason I was born in Germany is my father was in the military, in the army, and he was on a missile base in Germany, and so my mom was from Germany, and as a result, I was born right outside of Stuttgart, Germany.
Wow. So she's from Germany. Your mom
from Germany, yes. And my father was again in the military. My mom worked in the mayor's office there in a local town. My dad, for some reason, had to go and do some business over in this mayor's office, and he saw my mom and he liked her. But the funny thing is she didn't speak any English. She didn't speak any German. And wow. And he just showed up at her house one day, and she slammed the door in his face because her dad, my grandfather, he said, don't ever marry a Catholic, and don't ever marry an American. Well, we weren't Catholic. I mean, we're from Utah, but
yeah.
But, anyway, so, and then my dad didn't give up. He was very persistent, and he eventually, you know, kept coming back until she talked to him.
So. Wow. So how does that work? Like, so she's automatically allowed to just come to the U.S., I guess?
I think so. You know, if you are married to someone who's in the military, I think it was pretty easy for her to get her citizenship. But
yeah.
So I only lived in Germany for, you know, a short time, and then moved back to Utah, Springville, Utah, which is where my father was born and raised, and where Little Giant's corporate headquarters is. And then we actually moved back to Germany when I was about 6 or 7, and because my dad had started a position for a life insurance company, and since he spoke fluent German by then, and knew the German culture, he went back and sold life insurance actually to the military personnel for this company out of Salt Lake City.
Wow. So your dad started his out of the military career as an insurance salesman.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow.
He had a lot of interesting jobs, but one of the reasons why my dad, I think, was so successful is that when we were small, so I have a brother and two sisters. When we were pretty small, my uncle passed away, and he did not have a wife at that time, and so we had three first cousins that were very small as well, and they were going to be put up for adoption or foster care in Nevada. And my dad and mom were only 26 years old, and they adopted him. So my dad was 26, and he had 7 kids.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah. So my dad always says that was a huge motivation for him to be successful, because he had to put a lot of food on the table, and instant family, Brady Bunch type of family. So
I think, and I mean, you would kind of have to be living under a rock in the U.S. at least to not have heard of the Little Giant Ladder Company. But we're going to get to that. Because I'm very, very curious about how that all came about. So your dad got out of the military and started selling life insurance, ended up going back to Germany to sell to people in the military, it sounds like.
Yes.
And how long were you guys over there, you said?
Oh, probably 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And that's how he saw the idea of the Little Giant, the first Little Giant ladder. So my dad had a partner that was selling insurance with him over there, and he went to I think they went to like some kind of a home show or hardware show there in Germany.
Yeah.
My partner, his name was Richard Miner, and he saw this very crude prototype of the Little Giant ladder that was invented by a German house painter, and he loved it. He thought it was a great product, and he went and talked to my dad about it. And my dad said, "I don't really have any interest in seeing this ladder. We're selling insurance. You need to forget about this ladder." And so my dad's partner, he didn't give up. He just kept telling my dad, "You've got to see this ladder. It's really impressive, and I think you'll like it." So after,
and your dad's like, I don't know anything about ladders. I sell insurance.
Exactly. He's like, a ladder can only be a ladder, right? So eventually he talked him into going and visiting with this Walter that owned the company, and this painter. And then my dad was like, "This is incredible. I see potential in this." And this Walter Kummelin, that was his name, and my dad became very, very good friends. And
that's the painter that invented the. Okay.
Yeah, that's the painter. And so eventually, my dad thought, "Wow, I think I can sell these." But at the time, my dad, I mean, this was in like 1970. I think 70, 71 when my dad first saw it. And my dad was making like 70, 80,000 a year selling insurance. He was a very good salesman.
That's great money back then too.
Yeah.
That's great money right now.
Of course. Yeah. And he was a big risk taker, though, my dad was. And he was like, "I think I can do this." And so he worked out a deal where he could bring in, he said, "Okay, I will bring in a container of these and try selling them." And, and he talked my mom into, he says, "Hey, I'm going to quit my job and do this." And she's like, "Well, how much money are we going to make?" And he's like, "I don't know. It's probably not very much at first." So he says he was a really good salesman. He sold his car, he sold his boat, he sold all these things just to get this thing started. And, but that's how it started.
So, okay. So I keep saying your dad was the inventor of the Little Giant Ladder, but it doesn't sound like he was.
He wasn't the inventor, but then as we talk about the company more and more, you'll see that he made improvements and eventually got his own patents on the products. And we actually made a better product than the Germans, and they started buying parts from us later on. So
wow.
Yeah.
So now, are there? Well, we'll get into that. I was going to say, are there knockoffs? I know there's people trying to knock off to a degree, but and I've seen them. They're not very good. I happen to own a couple of Little Giants, so
Yeah, there's always people trying to copy you for, most of the time it's for a cheaper price and lesser quality. And
yeah,
but my dad always used to say that, hey, it's the greatest form of flattery is this when they copy us, and if they ever stop copying us, then we'll be in big trouble. So, but
wow.
he wasn't afraid of the competition. He wasn't, he's a big risk taker. So anyway, we moved back to Utah and started in 1972. A lot of people don't realize Little Giant's been around that long.
Jeez.
So, it was me and my brother and my dad and a couple of other people, that basically were with the company from the very beginning.
Wow. And he quit his job, which probably felt great to your mom. Secure.
Yeah. Quit his job, and he didn't know the first thing about the product. But so what happened is he actually had him, when we moved back to Utah, he had a couple of samples sent over, and he always likes to tell this story. But so he went around and showed the ladder, did the presentation to a bunch of his friends and other people, and got pre-orders for these. And then
wow,
when the first container came in, he said that there was a lot of excuses from people. They're like, yeah, I told you I'd buy one, but I just lost my job, or this happened or that happened. And so basically very few people that said they'd buy those ladders ended up not buying them. And so he had to come up with an ingenious way of selling them. And that's how the concept of, well, I'll take these to like trade shows, home and garden shows, home shows, and I'll do toe-to-toe selling. I'll demonstrate right to people, and then I'll write up the orders at these shows, and then in 4 to 6 weeks we'll ship them, and they'll get the product in 4 to 6 weeks. So that's how the company started, just by selling toe-to-toe like that.
So he was selling ladders that weren't even made yet.
Yeah, and again, as I mentioned to you before, I had texted you on a different podcast, or whatever you call it. Is that what they're called? Live streams, I guess.
Yeah.
But live streams. When he first started the company, the biggest ladder company, and still is one of the biggest ladder companies in the world, was Werner Ladder, and was owned by the Werner family. And my dad said he can remember he was at a trade show, and the two Werner brothers came up to him and they laughed at him. And they said, "Wing, you are a fool. We could have had this ladder years ago. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to fail." Basically, they said, "You're an idiot." And then, like 20 years later, they were like knocking on the door saying, "Hey, we'd like to buy your company." And my dad,
yeah,
I think so. Take a hike. They've tried to buy the company about 3 times. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That is awesome. So he went, and were you at these trade shows, or?
No, when I started, it's the only company I've ever worked for. I've had one employer. It's pretty interesting. But when the company started, I was like 10 years old. And so my brother was 12. I'm pretty sure it was either that, or maybe I was 12 and he was 14. So my dad had us working, at that time we were just bringing the ladders over. And so we had them warehoused, and my brother and I would clean the warehouse, and we had to put new labels on them and different things like that. But we started at the very bottom and just kept working, through the years.
So they were being manufactured in Germany and shipped over.
That's correct. Yes. In the very beginning. Okay. So what happened is we were buying containers at a time. And then if you recall, in the 70s, especially the late 70s, when the economy kind of tanked, remember when President Carter was the president, the interest rates were high and things were really bad economically in the U.S.
Yeah, gas was $12 a gallon, and
it was really bad. Yeah, and so my dad went to Walter and said, "Hey, could we build these in the U.S. and just do some kind of a licensing thing?" And so that was the second step, is when we actually started producing them here in America.
And that's in Utah.
Yes, yeah, that was it. The first manufacturing facility was in American Fork, Utah, and then
Wow.
later moved to Provo and Springville. We're in Springville right now. So there's been about 3 facilities in Utah that we've been manufacturing in, until right now.
That's incredible, man. So then the 80s hit, things started to boom again.
Mm-hmm.
Did is that where things really started taking off once you took over manufacturing here? And
Yeah, things started taking off, and then it's kind of an interesting story. The company started becoming very successful, and then we actually didn't even have a resale program. We just were selling direct still, and then there was a company in California that's a huge ladder distributor, and they're still a distributor today.
yeah,
They were our first distributor. The gentleman approached my dad and he says, "Hey, I want to resell these ladders." My dad goes, "Well, we don't have a program to resell these ladders." And he just kept bugging my dad. I think he gave him an order for like 300 or 400 ladders and said, "Well, maybe this will help you figure out a program that you can sell these to me so that I can resell them to people because people are asking for them." So then, from there we went and had a distributor program, and the company just started growing. And
wow,
but then when it was really interesting. After I graduated from high school, I served a mission for 2 years for my church, and my dad actually sold the company while I was gone.
whoa,
And yeah, well, it was right before I was gone. I would say it was probably in 81 or 82. He sold to a big company in San Jose, California. And then what happened is when I got back from my mission in 1985, the company that bought us, they also bought a bunch of other little companies, and they just ran them all into the ground. And so Little Giant was when in 1986, the company went under because this big company had milked all the money out of all these little companies. And so my dad, yeah, it was really crazy. And so my dad he knew that there was going to be a sheriff's sale. This is a really interesting story because
wow,
this would never happen today. He went to a bank there in Utah, right in Springville, Utah, and he went to the banker and he said, I think it was like $400,000 or $500,000. And he said, "I need this much money. I'm going to buy the assets back to the company and start it back up again. I don't know when I can pay you back, but I promise you I'll pay you back." And just on my dad's word, they gave him the money and he was able to start the company again.
wow, for 400,000 or 500,000.
Yeah, yeah. So he
That
went.
seems like a bargain, actually.
Yeah, and so here's another cool story about my dad is he bought the assets, not the liabilities to the company, but he went back to all the suppliers that were supplying us with labels and feed and aluminum and plastics and things. And this is where I really learned that my father had integrity. He went back to every one of these suppliers and said, "Hey, the company went out of business, not anything that we did. It was the company that bought us. And I don't really owe you anything, any of the money that from this previous company. But if you guys will work with us and give us credit, eventually I will pay you guys all back." And every company but one worked with my dad, and he paid everyone back over time.
Wow,
So the guy had a lot of integrity, and
that's incredible.
incredible man. Yeah.
What when outside of the business side, here you were being raised as a child by this man with vision, with tenacity, with integrity. What was it like being his kid? I mean, what was it like? I mean, was it and he was former military, so was it, make your bed, I want to be able to bounce a quarter on? I mean, what was he very strict? What was it like for you as a kid?
Yeah, he was super strict. In fact, some of my siblings, they say, "Well, it's borderline abuse," but everybody had been, spanked and used the belt. My dad was real strict, but
Yeah,
he was one of the most organized men I've ever met. He was just driven. He had such confidence, and a tenacity, like you said. Anything he did, he was just a competitor, and he just wouldn't take no for an answer, and he was just amazing. In fact, when he was in the military, his commander said, "Wing, you will either be, if you stay in the military, you will either be in the stockade or you will become a general."
Wow.
Yeah, he's just an awesome leader, and
Wow.
just, I mean, motivated. And my dad was only like 5'7". He was a very small man
Wow.
physically, but he had just a huge heart. And man, don't challenge him on anything. He was really competitive and driven, and in fact, it was he thought everybody thought like he did. Like, here's a funny story. When he first started hiring salesmen and they were doing these big trade shows,
Yeah.
they had this sales manager who was one of the first employees, and in the very beginning went up to my dad and he said, "Hal," he said, "not everybody thinks like you." And he's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well," he goes, "you don't have to go to the bathroom and you don't have to take lunch breaks, but these guys do, and you need to let them go and have lunch and go to the bathroom at these shows." And my dad was like, he thought everybody thought like he was. It was just like, I'm going to work all day and I don't stop for anything. And so he had to realize that he was kind of a freak of nature, and that not everybody was like him, and people needed to have lunch breaks.
I get that though, man. I can so relate to his mindset. Like, I never understood why do we have to close down during holidays? I still have to pay the bills. The bills don't stop just because we have the 4th of July or whatever.
I'll tell you one other story. One time my dad was overseas. He was in Europe, and he called me and said, "Hey, fax me over something." This was, in the days of when fax, were the way to communicate. He said, "Fax me over this document." I said, "Okay." And at that time I was running all the customer service department at Little Giant, and I got busy, and like 10 minutes later, my dad called me back and he goes, "I haven't seen that fax yet." And I said, "Dad, be patient. I'm kind of busy. I'll get this to you right away." And he said to me on the phone something I'll never forget. He goes, "Patience is a waste of time. Send it now." So he was a man that didn't have a lot of patience. But,
I love it.
Yeah, patience is a waste of time. So,
you know what? This is a perfect time for. Can I want to play the video.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
It's the memorial video that was made after he passed, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think this is a perfect time to play that, because we're going to lead into talking more about him. But let's play this video. Here we go.
What do I have to offer anybody? What does Hal Wing have to offer anybody? When people come to me and look for a job, there are certain things that I cannot teach them. If they don't have good moral values, okay, if they're not honest, if they don't have work ethic, if they don't have a sense of loyalty to you, these are not things that I can instill in someone. That's something only you can do. We created a category for ladders that's never existed before. And I had to go out and educate America on a ladder that at that time was $200, $250, when you could buy a ladder for $9.95 at Sears. What kept me going? The love of my family. One of my board of directors made the comment, he says, "You know, Hal, you started with nothing, and you may just end up with nothing." I hate failure. If you tell me it's impossible, folks, I'm ready to go. I've been blessed to have a lot of wonderful people help me along the way. The most important asset you will ever have will be your employees. They will make or break you. And you need to get where you treat them like they should be treated. I now had found the answer sought when someone is found in need. To shower him with gifts and wealth, it's not the proper deed. The way to truly help one grow and taste of victory, give him something he can use. Give him opportunity.
Wow. That's so powerful.
Yeah, it's kind of strange to hear my father's been passed away for about 9 years now, and it's kind of weird to hear his voice. And every once in a while, when I be traveling, our company's known for the infomercials that we've done, and they still play those. And every once in a while, I'm getting dressed, getting ready to go out of the business meeting of the day, and I see my dad on TV and hear his voice, and it brings in a lot of emotions. But incredible man. And we can talk about that philosophy of building the man and the woman, and if you do that, then the business will follow. And that was his philosophy. He started the company so that we could work together as a family, but then there were other people who obviously needed jobs, and so we've got over 400 employees now, but one thing that's interesting about my dad is that he would give people chances, a lot of people chances that other companies wouldn't. Ex-convicts, people that were, we hired some people in janitorial and in manufacturing that were a little bit slow and had some mental problems, and he was just always, hey, let's give people opportunities. And I think that the reason why he was like that is that, he was like that, and not very many people would give him opportunities. And I think he always remembered that he should be good to people. And if he was, then they would be good to him.
So it's so inspirational, man. I mean, because there's a lot of people running companies that are all about them. and they see the people working for them as a commodity, just
Yeah, one thing that was impressive about my dad is even when he was kind of semi-retired and retired, he knew every person that worked there by name. He could walk through the shop, manufacturing facility, or the office, and he could recall every person's name. He was incredible. His memory was unbelievable. I'm pretty good about it, but my brother, not so much. He sometimes he doesn't remember everybody, but he was incredible that way, and he knew something about him and just showed interest in him. And the culture at Little Giant is really, really unique. It's more like a family than a business.
Yeah.
It's the only place, and I've only worked one place, but I've been in a lot of business meetings with big companies, huge companies. It's the only place of business I've ever been in where every meeting is started with a word of prayer. And
wow.
My dad believed that in a higher power, he believed that we were blessed by this higher power, and that as we served others and helped others to provide employment and took good care of them, that we would be blessed as well.
We can call that higher power what it is. It's God, right?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that's so incredible, man. I gave me chills when you said that. That is so absolutely cool.
And people are blown away when they come to work for us. The first meeting, they're like, "Well, we're having prayer. This is crazy." But then they're like, "This is just," they love it. So
yeah, I'm working for a cult.
But my dad believed. He said, one of these days when I die and when I meet my maker, he goes, I'm going to have to give an accounting for what the success I had and what I did with my wealth, and did I bless other people? He goes, I'm convinced of that.
And this is a, it wasn't an overnight success though. You said when he quit his insurance job and told your mom, hey, I really want to quit my job and do this ladder thing.
Yeah.
She said, well, how much money can you make? And he said, I have no idea, but he sold everything, you said, to start
it. And the thing that was interesting is my dad said he can remember coming home at night and then getting up the next day and saying, if I don't sell, whatever amount of ladders, 10 ladders, 15 ladders, 18 ladders today, we're busted. We're out of business. Can you imagine that? And so he knew exactly. And he says, somehow I was always able to sell at least that and more, most of the times more. And I mean, I can remember growing up and when everybody was doing backflips when we did like a first $1 million year.
Yeah.
And then I can remember when we did $1 million month and, so on and so forth. So, things were lean in the very beginning. My dad, people don't realize this, but my dad told me before that he paid all of the employees several times and then they didn't take a paycheck. My mom and dad didn't take a paycheck and they just lived off their savings. But, my mom was the great equalizer. My dad was just kind of like, I'm just going to say he was a big time risk taker. And he was, and my mom was from Germany, lived in the war. Their house got bombed. And so my mom was like a penny pincher. And they really balanced each other out good because my mom was the saver. My dad was like, let's roll the dice and risk everything. And so they did equalize each other out really well. And it worked out pretty well.
I can relate, except for there were times when my employees all got paid and we didn't have a savings. So we were living on faith and faith alone.
But see, my dad got a lot of the credit. But think about my mother. She's got 7 kids. She had no driver's license. She never got her driver's license. My dad's gone when I'm in junior high and high school. My dad's gone over 300 days a year. Wow. So my mom was taking care of, she was the disciplinarian. She was taking care of everybody. And kudos to my mother who kept the whole family together. And while my dad was out busting his rear end.
And did you say three of the kids were
my first cousins? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were adopted.
And your mom just stepped right up and said, I'm in, let's raise these kids.
Yeah. My dad, people saw my dad later on in his life, and the guy had over 50 cars and, very nice homes and things. And they don't see the times when my dad was living in a station wagon, sleeping on top of ladders and could only stay in a hotel about every 4 or 5 nights. And so he would clean up in gas station restrooms and he was talking about getting pulled over by the police at night when he's sleeping in his car, and they said, hey, you can't sleep here. You're going to have to move. You're going to have to go some other place. And so people don't realize what he went through to do this, and really my dad died at 72 and he didn't really take good care of himself. He just worked. People would call my dad and say, hey, can we come and visit you and have lunch? And you can tell us your story. And he goes, well, eating lunch is a waste of time. But if you want to make an appointment with me, I would be glad to meet with you. And I can give you a few secrets of being successful. So the guy was on the go all the time.
Wow. That's incredible. Did that have any kind of negative impact on you as a kid, or did you just say that's just how that's how it's got to be?
No, not really. I told you before that we grew up riding and racing dirt bikes, my brother and I. My dad was so competitive. He got into it when he was like in his late 30s. True story. He called himself a squid on a dirt bike. He didn't know what he was doing. He kept crashing his brains out. And people that he went with were laughing at him, making fun of him. But you know what? That was fuel for my dad. My dad said within 3 or 4 months, he was beating the pants off those guys. Just sheer determination and competitiveness and willpower. He was a competitor. But when my dad was home, he spent a lot of quality time with us. He knew how to balance it out. And we had a lot of fun when he was around, and he just knew he was very organized. The guy was one of the most organized people that I had ever met in my life. Incredible.
Absolutely amazing. So, I've seen, I bought my little giant ladders. I have 2 of them. I have the big, whatever the Mac Daddy one is called, that extends to like 18 feet or whatever. I have that one. It's in the garage. It's very lightweight compared to other ladders in its category, but it's still not the easiest ladder to. I sent you a picture. I texted you that picture. I was installing this thing on my daughter's trampoline, and I'm like, the little giant, and it's a beautiful piece of equipment. And then I have the smaller one inside that folds out, and it has the 3 steps and the thing that swings. I don't even know what it's called, but you know, and they're amazing ladders, absolutely amazing ladders. So let's kind of talk about, you know, the company started really taking off in the 80s. Did you guys, did it ever go public?
No, it's always been privately held. And since my dad did sell it at one time, he was very, very cautious to once the company started having success again, boy, people come around and say, sell us your business. And my dad just had no interest in doing that. So the company continued to be successful. And it got to a point in about 1990 when this was a real pivotal point for the company. The patents of we were kind of a one-trick pony. We had the Little Giant in about 4 different sizes. And it was a real big blessing to the company because our patents ran out. And I would say within several months of the patents running out, there were several competitors that came into the market, Chinese imports. In fact, one of our biggest distributors in California, there was a competitor that came out, had a full-page ad in the USA Today that this Gorilla ladder was in Home Depot for half the price of our ladder. And he goes, "What are you guys going to do about this?" And so luckily for us, we were double the price, but we had a lot of experience over the last 20 years. We knew what quality meant in the product. So these competitors came in at half the price, but they also came in with inferior quality. And so that was one thing that did help us, but it did cause the company to look kind of outside the box, if you will, and change. And that's when the company decided to do the infomercial, the first infomercial. And that was filmed with Dean Johnson and Robin Hartle from Home Time. Now, there's a funny story about that, too. We really didn't have the money to do this infomercial. And so what happened is here the company's sales had started to decline. We started to have competition. And we had the idea of doing this infomercial, but we didn't have the money. So my dad said, "All right, I'll loan you the money. I'll give you I think it was $500,000 at the time, 1990. My dad said, "I will personally loan you the money. And I want you to promise me that you'll give me back the money in 6 months." And
wow.
So we said, "Okay, we'll do that." And he said, "Oh, by the way, he was in the infomercial as well. And he says, "I want a royalty." And so he said, "I want $10 for every ladder that you guys sell."
Wow.
So we took
So was he not in the company anymore?
He was kind of semi-retired at that time. He was still chairman of the board, and but day to day, maybe not so much. But so he said, you guys are gonna pay me this royalty. And so what happened was it was incredible success. And the next year, the company 4 times its sales.
Wow.
It went crazy. We went from building, trying to think if it was 400 or 500 ladders a day to 7,000, 24 hours a day, 6 days a week.
7,000 a day?
Yeah. And we did all of this. Okay, think about how much this would cost to ramp all this up. Well, there was so much money as a result of this infomercial. We were able to do the growth and all of the tooling and machinery and everything. We did it all with no debt. The next year we 4 times our sales again, and
from what it was the previous year.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was just incredible. And my dad got his $600,000 back and then some, I'll tell you that. So he did very well. But so the lessons that we learned from that, though, having that one-trick pony, and what was interesting was, remember I told you about that ladder that was in Home Depot for half the price?
Yep.
Our brand, excuse me, let me get a drink.
Yeah, go ahead. This is awesome.
Our brand was so strong that guess who called us and said, "We want your ladders?" Home Depot. So we're like, wait a minute, you've got the inferior one, you've got the knockoff brand for half the price, and you guys want Little Giant? They go, yeah. Some people come in and they don't want this cheaper ladder. They want the Little Giant. So Home Depot was making big money because they were selling our ladder, and they were also selling, I think they sold, for every Little Giant they sold 4 of the inexpensive ones. So they were making huge amounts of money. But what this taught us was that that we needed to grow the company and grow it and make it stronger in other areas. And so with the money that the money that came into the company, we actually went out into different verticals.
Yeah.
And started, producing fiberglass ladders, and went into like cable telco and construction. And so we took it and spent a lot of money on innovation.
Yeah.
And went into that, and it really paid off. The company made it a stronger company, and just kept growing. So
tell me though, so your dad was semi-retired, still chairman of the board, but semi-retired, and you and your brother were running the company?
Yeah, my brother and I, plus we had well, I just wanted to say one thing about that infomercial. My dad was amazing. He always knew that the employees are the ones that really helped get the company to where it is. So when we had that success, he went to the CFO and he said, "I want to give $1 million to all the employees." And he said, "Can we do it?" And our CFO was like, "Yeah, we can do it." So he went, and we sat down, me and my brother and I and our management team, and we took every employee by how long they had been there, their position, and took this $1 million and divided it up amongst the employees. There were some people who had only worked for us for 2 or 3 weeks that got like $3,000 and $4,000 checks. It was incredible. Yeah. So
what's the biggest check that went out?
I got a nice one too, but I think I got one at me and my brother, of course, and the management team. We got some pretty nice checks, but
yeah,
they were bigger than what some people make in a year. They were pretty nice, but anyway, that's the kind of heart my dad had, And
that's
people,
so awesome.
at this meeting, people, he had pizza and everything for everybody. People were crying. I mean, hugging each other, and people couldn't believe it.
That is making an impact in the world, man. That is so freaking awesome. My question though, that's incredible, but okay, so I want to go back to it's sales are declining. You don't have an infomercial at the time, but somebody came up with the idea, let's do an infomercial. Who was that?
Well, there's
You're like, we still fight about this at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, me, but I think there's 2 people in the company that say it was their idea, but I wasn't one of them. I always tell people there's a lot of smart people at Little Giant. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them, but I was born with the right last name. So,
right.
But anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter who gets the credit, but it
was the pivotal moment.
Yes. Oh yeah. Huge moment for the company. And my dad, he was just amazing. Like, there was a guy that worked for us and still works for us in sales. And there was a canal that broke near his house and flooded his house, and the insurance company wasn't paying for it, and the canal company wasn't paying for it. And they were all fighting over this. And meanwhile, the guy's got like 6 feet of water in his basement and his mold and got all these things. My dad went to this guy one day, heard about this, and wrote him a personal check for $50,000 and said, "I hope this helps you get your house fixed back up again," out of his own money. Huh? As a loan? Oh, he gave it to him. Wow. Yeah. So that just tells you the kind of heart that my dad had.
Wow.
For his employees. He loved them. They loved him. I mean, there's no doubt that if my dad had a need at 2 a.m, he'd call some people and they would be right there. They just loved my dad, and he was just incredible with people.
That is so awesome, man. And so how did that, how do you feel like that's impacted you in your life?
Well, the way it's impacted me is that to really appreciate the people that come work for us each day. And I tried my best to be like my dad and to get to know all the employees, to let them know that they're important. But just if, I mean, it's the Zig Ziglar thing. If you help enough people get what they want, they're going to help you get what you want. And it's just the culture at Little Giant. It's, if you want to build a business, you build the people and the business will follow. And that's what's happened with us. We've been so blessed. And I think if people will remember that, even in sales, if you just treat people the way you want to be treated, and you listen and you become interested in them, and realize it's not about you, but it's about them. And if you just try to help people, then you're going to be successful. And that is really, my dad was uber competitive. He was, he didn't quit, but he did realize that people are more important than things. And that is kind of the Little Giant story. Is, yes, we've got great products, we've got great people there. The people are really what make a company, not the patents, not the products, not the buildings. And that is, if people will remember that and build people, then they're gonna be successful.
I think we should tell everybody that you invited me to come out and do a live stream at the Little Giant headquarters, which I think would be I'd like to do it on Amazon, sell some ladders.
Yeah, Amazon does really well they're one of our bigger retailers.
Yeah. And I can do live streams on Amazon. So I think it would be so cool to get on there and sell some ladders on Amazon from the headquarters. Like, that would be so cool.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Yeah, I think that it would be interesting, because I'm sure you still have a lot of employees at Little Giant that knew your dad and worked for your dad, right?
Yeah. Our company is incredible. We've got people that are still in manufacturing. They've worked there for 30 years. I mean, you look at them and some of them can barely walk. They've worn themselves out for us. I mean, because of our culture, we have people stay for a long time, and it's just like a family there. They're amazing. They're just amazing.
Mark Gassert says your dad totally understood that people are the most treasured investment. It's the best investment you can make. Corporate America, are you listening?
Yeah, I wanted to tell you something, that after the infomercial, we of course have had huge success, and we've had just company after company, private equity company, come in and try to buy the company. And I remember one time this big, I don't know if I should say their name, but a big private investment firm came in from New York. They flew into Provo on a Learjet, business jet, and there was like 12 suits that walked in. I'll never forget this day. I'm in this meeting, and these guys are just like, we want to buy your company. And it was for millions and millions of dollars. And my dad had one question for him. He goes, if I sell you my company, what's going to happen to my employees? And the guy him-hawed around, and, the chairman of this big company, my dad goes, no, don't him-haw around. Tell me what's going to happen to my employees.
Yeah.
This meeting was supposed to last all day long. And the guy goes, well, he goes, we'll buy your company and we're going to build it. And, within 5 years, we'll probably flip it. And, we'll move stuff offshore and people will lose their jobs. And my dad goes, well, it's been a great meeting, guys, but meeting is over. And the guy goes, well, don't you understand how much money we're offering you? My dad goes, I already have a lot of money. And he goes, you just giving me more money. And he goes, I care about these people. So the meeting's over. Within 20 minutes, these guys were back to Provo on their business, back to New York. And he just told them off. He goes, no, I won't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so incredible.
In fact, my dad got a call from Warren Buffett. This was back in, so there's a big furniture chain in Utah called R.C. Willey that Warren Buffett bought.
Yeah.
And when he was there for the this deal, signing the deal, he saw an ad, or there was an article on my dad in the paper. So he called him and he's like, Hal, I'm interested in your company. Send me the information. This was back when, when we were just like $20 million company. And so he actually, my dad sends him all the financials. Yeah, he sends him all the financials. And Warren Buffett calls my dad like 2 weeks later and says, hey, Hal, you got a nice little company. It's just too small for me. If you ever get to the size where, I'd be interested, he goes, we can talk again. But my dad couldn't believe how nice he was and how humble he was. This guy's one of the richest guys in the world. But at first, my dad, when he called my dad, he's like, is this some kind of joke? Is somebody playing a joke on me? But it was him, yeah.
That is so cool. Warren Buffett has your ladders at home too.
Yeah, here's the funny story about the Warner guys. I remember seeing one of the Warner brothers at a show, and he goes, don't tell anybody because I will deny it. But he goes, the ladders I have in my closet are Little Giant. It was one of the Warner guys, the brothers.
I love it, man. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Somebody asked, and I want to find the comment real quick because I thought it was a great question. Ray Campbell said, Doug, what was your dad's favorite scripture? Do you know?
Boy, I'm not sure about that one, but
it had to be do unto others.
It was probably something like that. Yeah. Rule or something. But we at Little Giant, we have Christmas parties. My dad would always take 15, 20 minutes to read about the birth of Christ. And he would say, if anybody doesn't feel comfortable, you can step out for a few minutes while we do this. But this is a Christmas party and we talk about Christ. This is our company and this is how we're going to do it. And wow. And he was good about it, but he
didn't ever convert over to the holiday party.
No, he was.
Go Hal! I love this dude.
Yeah, he was the mayor of Springville, and they actually had meetings, city council meetings, and things, and they started those with prayer, and then like the ACLU called my dad and said, we're going to sue the city and all this. He goes, bring it on, he goes. We're going to do this as long as I'm mayor. He wasn't afraid of he was, like I said, a short guy, but he was pretty feisty.
Yeah. So you know what? That is that. And Sandy Archer just said it. He stayed solid. He didn't budge. And I love that, man. I love that. So you are, I forget, you told me that you and your brother are
my brother's the chairman of the company now.
Okay.
The vice chairman. I actually was fortunate enough to retire last year, and I am involved in other things. But I've worked in this company my entire life. I love the company, but I've flown just in North America alone about over 2 million miles on Delta Airlines, and so I did know last year that I was not going to do this anymore, and but I'm still involved on the board. Still, a majority. My brother and I are both the majority shareholders of the company. But that's the interesting thing is, what do we do with the company going forward?
Yeah.
My brother has a son. I have a son. They're both millennials, and we love them. But it's a different mindset with these young people, and it's going to be real interesting to see where the company goes. As far as when we're gone. Are we gonna sell the business? Are we gonna do an employee buyout or different things like that? But those are things that that we've talked about and thought about. But it's just different times, and it's the younger generation is a different generation. They have their strengths as well, but it's not the same as we grew up, for sure.
So you're still, but you're the company's still doing the infomercials, still doing.
Yeah, the company's still doing a little bit of infomercial. I mean, it's been one of the most successful, longest running infomercials. We don't do as much. We've refreshened it up about 2 or 3 times, maybe 3 or 4 times. We just signed a 5-year contract with Lowe's. And so we're now big time in retail with Lowe's, with Costco, with Amazon, with in the industrial side with a big company called Grainger that a lot of people have probably heard about.
Yeah,
those types of businesses and things. But the company is, is more diverse now, is really a lot stronger because we've branched out into, like I said, fiberglass products where we pultrude all our own fiberglass right in Springville, Utah. And we do that 24 hours a day. So it's pretty incredible. Yeah, the business is good. And through this COVID, and I mean, we're up over last year, which is incredible considering COVID and everything that's happened. And we're pretty blessed. We feel very, very blessed.
Absolutely incredible story, man. Absolutely. I honestly, I don't even know what else I could ask you about this story. Your dad was definitely had vision and definitely had tenacity. And I would say it doesn't sound like he lived with a lot of fear in his life.
He wasn't really afraid of anything. In fact, I asked him one time, I said, excuse me, I said, man, when that other company bought us and they went out of business, were you scared? Was it hard to get the company going again? He goes, no, it was easier the second time. And he goes, it was easier for this reason, because I remembered all the mistakes I made the first time, and I didn't make those again. And so he was just incredible with people and with just the vision he had, and to get people to buy into his vision and get him to come along and work with him. And he like I said before, he had this ability to see people not as other people see them, but to see their potential. For example, we had a gentleman that went to prison for stealing. And my dad knew this when he came in, and he said, well, you're not going to steal from me, are you? And the guy's like, no. So my dad gave him a job. Well, he ended up eventually becoming a supervisor at Little Giant.
Wow.
Let me get a drink. And he retired from us he worked for us for, 30 years. But my dad says he can still remember handing him the keys to the building when he made him the foreman of the whole manufacturing shop foreman. And he said, this guy, big guy, he was a great big guy. And he said, this guy just sobbed like a little baby in his arms. Yeah. And my dad just said, you can do this. Wow. And so he really helped people to grow. And by doing that, then of course our business grew. And I want to tell you one thing too, is when my dad passed away, the governor came. The governor came to. Was one of the first people at the mortuary, the funeral home, and he said to my brother and I, he goes, "Your dad said that he was in the ladder business, but he goes, that was incorrect. Your father was in the people business." And I thought that was really, really interesting, coming from the governor of Utah. That no, your dad wasn't in the ladder business; he was in the people business.
That is so incredible. Wow. I got to tell you, man, what an inspirational story. And I would imagine that new employees that are, I don't know if you hire new employees still or not, but I would
imagine right now.
Are you? So they don't know your dad. I'm sure that it's interesting for new people coming in to hear all of these things. Mm-hmm. And is there, do you have a current CEO of the company?
Yeah. And you know, what's incredible is I don't have a college degree. My brother doesn't have a college degree. The CEO of our company doesn't have a college degree. He worked his way up from building ladders in production, and he's now the CEO of the company. Now our CFO, does he have a college degree? Of course he does. Right. Yeah. He needs to know about finance and those things. My dad didn't have a college degree. So, that doesn't matter. My dad always said he would really wished he would have had a college degree, but he goes, it's just a piece of paper, really. I mean, we're the three of us, my dad, my brother, and I, we kind of learned from the School of Hard Knocks, and we feel like we have more than a college degree in the experiences that we've had growing up in the company, and I'm just grateful for a wonderful father and mother that taught us how to work and how to care for people. My mom and dad were very giving. My I remember when my father passed away, every Christmas, my mom would have these little envelopes with cash in them, and she'd have their names on them, and she'd have me go down to these widows' houses and give them, these little Christmas gifts. And boy, they were both just incredible givers, and they knew that what they had been blessed with wasn't really theirs. It was just theirs to see, to help other people, really.
And is your mom still?
My mom passed away a few years ago, and she just was lonely. I mean, she just missed my dad so much, and she just said, "Why am I still alive?" I talked to her every day on the phone. She'd say, "I don't want to be here. I want to be with your dad. You guys know what you're doing. You're running the company. You're all grown up now. You don't need me." And I said, "No, Mom, you're wrong. We need you." But she was a wonderful woman, and really helped keep my dad grounded, and they worked so well together. But yeah, she was great.
Wow. Crystal Zimmerman sounds like she knows your mom, knew your mom.
Maybe. I don't know who she is, but you know what? Even to this day, I'll run into people and they'll ask me my name. I'll go into a store. Oh, here's a real quick story for you, if you got time.
Yeah, sure.
I ran into this gentleman, and he goes, "I got a story about your dad. Do you want to hear it?" And I go, "Yes, that's fine." And he goes, "I was your dad's business banker."
Wow.
He goes, "I want to tell you a story about your father." He goes, "Your dad needed a business loan for some new equipment, and he came in, and he goes, your dad was very short with his time. He said, this is how much money, this is how much, I'm willing to, as far as, finance it for, and these are the terms and everything, have the paperwork ready because I don't like to wait." And so he goes, "I remember your dad coming in to the bank the day to sign those papers." And he goes, back in the days, the loans were, like 2 inches thick. And he goes, I sat down with your dad, and I asked your dad was just going to sign them. And I go, "Hal, don't you want to read through these loan papers?" And he goes, "Your dad looked at me. I'll never forget about what your dad said." He goes, he looked at me and he said, "If everything that we talked about is not in these documents, this will be the last time we ever do business together." And your dad signed them and left. And he goes, "I'll never forget that, about obviously that your dad trusted me and he expected me to be honest and upright." And he goes, basically the idea was, your dad said, "You can get me once, but you're not going to get me again, So if what we talked about isn't in there, this will be the last time we do business together."
That is so incredible, man. That's so incredible.
And I still get people, I run into people, like when my dad passed away, people would come up and say, "Hey, and we didn't know about any of this, as the kids didn't, the siblings, people would walk up to us and say, 'Hey, I was on hard times. Your dad bought me a car. I was on hard times. Your dad helped me pay my house payments. Your dad put my son through college. Your dad paid for my son and her daughter's church missions,' and things like that." We had no idea that they did any of this stuff, but they were just super, super generous, and they were just amazing examples and role models. And
do you find yourself carrying over any of their traditions in your life?
Yeah, my dad had 2 or 3 charities that he would put time into, and then I'm actively involved in those right now on the boards. Awesome. So people tell me I got my dad's heart, a good heart and a giving heart. But I hope I live longer than 72. My dad had heart issues, but I think part of his is that he just worked. He never really took time to eat properly and to exercise as much as he should have. In fact, one time, my dad and I and my brother, we were out riding our Harley Davidsons. We pulled up into a gas station, and my dad just passed out and fell over. And so the EMTs come over, and my dad wakes up inside this little 7-Eleven type of store, right?
Yeah.
The first thing out of my dad's mouth was, "What happened to the bike? Is it dented?" My brother and I are like, "Dad, you could buy 30 new Harleys." "Well, tell me if it's dented." We're like, "Dad, it's not dented." He's all mad about the dent in the bike, So then the EMTs and the police are like talking to my dad. And they go, "How? What's going on?" He goes, "Nothing. I was just riding and I passed out." And they go, "Well," so the EMT goes, "When was the last time you ate?" My dad goes, oh, about 2 days ago.
Oh my God.
And he goes, what? And he goes, eating's a waste of time. I'm having too much fun. So anyway, his blood sugar was all messed up. So the EMT guy goes, Hal, would you do me a favor and have a Coke right here and eat a can? Oh yeah, I'll do that. And as soon as he, 15 minutes later, man, he's back on his bike. Boom, off he goes,
Oh my gosh.
It was just some funny experiences with him. Just go. And he just had fun in life. And he just he wanted to see it all, do it all. And the guy had 9 lives and he used them all up. And I don't think my dad, if he was alive today, he wouldn't change anything. He lived life to the fullest, 100 miles an hour. He had nice, fast cars and fast bikes. And he just went, millions an hour.
And sold a lot of ladders.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got time for one more story?
We have all the time in the world, man.
So my dad's in New Orleans, Louisiana. He's got a van full of ladders, and he's coming out of the convention center in New Orleans, and it's late, and him and another salesman, they get pulled over by these 2 policemen. And the policeman says, what's in the van? My dad goes, ladders. And the guy goes, I guess they were having problems with people stealing stuff back then. And the policeman said, well, whose ladders are they? And my dad goes, they're mine. And he goes, do you have a receipt for your ladders? Can you prove that they're yours? And he goes, no, I can't prove it, but they're mine. And so there's an older policeman and the younger policeman. And the older policeman says, well, we're going to have to go downtown if you can't prove that these are your ladders. So the salesman looks at my dad and said, Hal, just show him. So they go around to the back of the van. They open it up. My dad takes the ladder out. He flips it through all the configurations. And the younger policeman looks at the older policeman and says, these have to be his ladders. There's no way this guy knows how to do that, if he just stole these ladders. So anyway, the funny part of this story is the younger policeman was a part-time painter, and he bought a ladder at midnight from my dad right there in the back of the van in New Orleans.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Of course he did. It sounds like your dad could have sold ice to Eskimos, man. That is incredible.
Incredible salesman. Yeah. And he was just so good with people, and he just took an interest in people and
wow.
And had such a good attitude. He was so positive. I never saw my dad down. I mean, honestly, I never saw my dad, even through all the hard times in the business. He would always say, we're going to make it through this. Don't worry. And he was, I'm like my mom. I'm kind of a worrier. I'm a saver. I'm not really a risk taker. My brother's a risk taker, so we kind of balance each other out. But anyway, he was just full of life. And
dude, that's so awesome. Let me ask you. I have 2 questions. My first question is for you and your perspective, your opinion. In your opinion, what do you think holds people back in life from experiencing true success and abundance and joy and happiness?
Well, I think, and I was listening to Earl Nightingale this morning before we got here. Yeah, just positive. I think honestly that people they just don't have the confidence to do things that they could do. And my dad, that's one thing that my dad really instilled in us, was that we could do anything that we wanted to do if we put in enough work, hard work and dedication, and had a good attitude. And he was just so good at and worked hard enough. And so I guess and don't give up. I think that people sell themselves short, and they can do anything that they want to if they do the right things, which is basically you've got to have a goal. You've got to put that goal in front of yourself every day. Yeah. You've got to have faith. You've got to have hard work. And if you'll do those things and never give up, you will be a success. And also, success isn't just about money, and money does not buy happiness. I have been blessed with a lot of things, and those things do not bring true happiness. So for me, if you'll take time to serve other people, help other people, look for ways to what to do, and that you can bless people with. Those things bring true happiness. But don't give up. And if you think about the story of Little Giant, there were so many times when my dad could have just said, you know what, I can quit. What am I doing this for? I can go sell life insurance for any other company and I can make a lot of money, because he was a good salesman. But his idea was, I'm going to build a business that's going to bless other people, that I can bless other people with the resources that I'm going to receive, that I can give people opportunity. And so that was really the vision behind my dad, was that not to get rich. That was never his plan, but to make a place that we could work as a family, and then other people could work, and then bless the lives of others.
If your dad was sitting here right now and I was interviewing both of you, which would be really cool, he wouldn't sit this long though, would he?
No, he would come into meetings, and I think my dad had ADD, but he just didn't have the patience. Yeah, he would come in for like 10 minutes and be like, okay, I've heard everything I need to hear.
Yeah. But if I asked him the same question, if I said, Hal, what do you think holds people back from success and joy and happiness in life? What do you think his answer would be?
I think it'd be pretty similar. I think that, honestly, self-belief, the confidence, the guy had more confidence than anybody I've ever met, and he wasn't afraid to fail. He was a risk taker, and he would always say, you're never ever a failure until you quit, and the guy would not quit. And so I think that if you look at successful people like yourself, like Jeffrey, like so many other people, find something that you're good at, and be the best person you can be at that, and you will be a success. And but for my dad, the philosophy was all about, if you'll build people and help them have opportunities, then you're going to be successful. And the guy was unbelievable with people. People remembered him. I was at a car show the other day, a few months ago, and I was next to these people, and they found out who I was, and they go, your dad was incredible. They had met my dad at car shows. I run into people all the time that just said, your dad was so good to us, so nice to us, treated us amazing. He did this for us. He just took time to talk to us. He was just, he was a people person. He loved people, and he tried to build people and help people.
What's and so you say right now, what, and I don't know if this is even for public knowledge or not, but what is the height of the, no pun intended, but what's the heights that your company reached? Like hundreds of millions, billions? Is it
not billions yet? But
you said, you made a statement when we were just at 20 million. I'm like, do you know how many companies would love to be just at 20 million?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys have reached some pretty big.
Yeah, I think we're the third largest ladder company now.
In the world?
I think so. Yeah. So we're international now. We do a lot of manufacturing in the US. We do some overseas, but that's coming back. And we're bringing a lot of jobs back to the US. So most of it is, done here, but yeah, the company's grown. It's doing well. And I think one of the hardest parts for Little Giant right now is, as we grow, when we used to have 20 employees, now we have 450 or whatever it is, something like that, is to keep that culture. You've got to keep that family, the feeling of family, and the feeling of, hey, we know everybody, we love everybody, we treat them like they're, our family members, and we can't ever lose that culture that my dad and mom started, is that we love and care about everybody, and we treat them good and help them be successful, and then we continue to be successful ourselves.
I love the story, Doug. I love what you and your brother are doing. If you look at what Sam Walton built, and then he passed away, and I'm not picking on him, but things aren't the same. They're just not the same. So a lot of times, when the second or third generation comes along in a business, they they look at the numbers only, and you and your brother, it does not sound like you guys are doing that. You're keeping the same culture. I love that.
Well, one of the neat things about Little Giant is it's unique. I mean, it's a small thing we do, but every person that works there gets their birthday off with pay. Now, it's just a small little thing, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that makes the company unique and different. And okay, here's another story for you real quick.
Yeah.
So we had an employee, a really good employee, made some bad decisions financially, came into us and said, I'm going to lose my house. I've made some foolish decisions. Is there any way you guys can help me out? Now, okay, Ken, what would most companies say to that?
No.
Yeah, no, we're not a bank, right? We're your employer. So this is when my dad was alive. My dad says, hey, this employee is an awesome employee. Isn't there anything we can do about it? So we sat down as a management team and said, hey, guess what? This employee gets quarterly bonuses, and he hits his bonuses every quarter.
Yeah.
My dad goes, give him the money, save his house. We gave him the money, saved his house. He paid us back. Now, you tell me any employee that's going to do that for their employee, any employer that's going to do that for their employees, it doesn't exist. So those are the types of things that, and guess what? That guy still works for us today. His brother works for us. So anyway,
Wow.
those are some of the things that my dad did and that we continue to try to do for people that work for us.
I wish that every single business owner in the world would watch this interview and listen to this, because it's so important. You know, you walk into, I think it was Sunday, I was talking about, there's a restaurant chain here in the Midwest called Bob Evans. And we were sitting at the one here in our little town outside of Columbus, and this woman was running this little vacuum thing around the tables, and she, and you could just see the happy energy on her, right? Like she was just joyful. And I said, you know, this place is incredible. Your service, like this is the best Bob Evans I've ever been in. Like, and she goes, well, that's why we're number one in the nation. I said, what? And she said, we are. And she and this was the general manager of the whole place running the vacuum. She wasn't sitting in an office counting numbers, or it was just absolutely. And that's what it sounds like you guys have built, is you've built this culture that everybody there is like, hey, we're family. We got to make this work. We have deadlines. We got to make it work. We have to make this shipment. We have to make it work. Like it's incredible, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever been out west and been to In-N-Out Burger.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what's the difference between walking into an In-N-Out Burger and the way that the employees interact with you, and then going to McDonald's?
Yeah.
Now think about this for a minute.
I'd say,
what's the difference?
the In-N-Out, they're nice. They're very nice and friendly and happy, and
they hire happy people.
Not so much.
Their training must be incredible, right? And they pay their employees well.
Yeah.
I've met several managers who make big money, but they are treated very well. They love the company, and the company treats them well, and it shows the way they interact with you and the way they treat you.
It's true. It's true. That's why you can't go into an In-N-Out Burger and you're never in and out. You're in and you wait, because they're always packed.
Yeah, the food's great, but the employees are really special.
They are.
And that, to me, makes a big difference.
It does.
I've been talking too much.
You're not used to talking this much.
And my wife said I got a big mouth. She said I like to talk too much.
This has been awesome, and I can't wait to come out and take you up on your invitation. Come out, and now you didn't know I'm a golfer, so
good. Well then you can teach me how to golf.
Yeah.
I only have one hole in one. That's it.
I've never had a hole in one. I've come really close many times. Never had one. So
But I want to do the dirt bike thing if you still want to.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Something that your listeners may not know is that Jim Rohn was a big dirt bike rider. Even in his older age in Idaho, he would ride dirt bikes.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He loved them.
I'm friends with Kyle Wilson, who was Jim Rohn's business partner for 18 years.
That because Jim Rohn, he talked about it. I've listened to a lot of his different talks and things, audio, stuff, and he talked about dirt bikes. I was like,
That's
hey,
so awesome.
awesome. He rides dirt bikes as well. Yeah. So
Yeah, I love dirt bike. I love it. I've done it my whole life. Well, I told you I had a bad accident years and years and years ago, and I haven't been on a bike since then, but I need to get back into it. I love it.
yeah, we'll take it easy when you come out. Don't worry.
Look, my wife said, OMG, Doug, he will never come home. I don't know about that. I'll probably be back, hon. So, anyway, hey, Doug, thank you so much, man, for coming on and blessing everybody watching with your time and amazing stories about your dad and your family. And
yeah, we could go on forever. I've got, my dad was writing a book when he passed away, and I've talked to Jeffrey about this. We never did finish that book, and Jeffrey said he could help me do this book.
Somebody up here, I'm looking through the comments. Somebody asked if, here, Ray Campbell, have you all written a book on your dad's life?
No, but we've thought, like I said, he did have a book that he had started, and there was a professor there at Brigham Young University that was helping him do it. And he said, hey, I'll help you finish this, but it would take me a while, but I've thought about it, and
it'd be a bestseller overnight, and
yeah,
I would help you get there.
It was gonna be titled "Ladders I Have Climbed." I think was going to be
I love that.
Yeah, it was going to be the title of the book. So, funny thing about my dad in the infomercial, they had this big script for him, and they said, memorize this. True story on the first infomercial. And he just threw it back to him, and he goes, nope, get the cameras rolling. I know exactly what to say. And he did it all just off the cuff.
That's so awesome, man.
Incredible.
Doug Wing, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. You're incredible.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate the opportunity to, my dad was really the mastermind behind this whole thing. That we just learned from him. He was amazing, and we're just blessed to know him and to keep that tradition going and his legacy. I appreciate it very much.
So awesome. I want to say thank you to everybody who's been on here and shared this out, and for all the wonderful comments. Doug, you'll have to go back and look at some of the comments. People love you, your dad, and the story that you just told. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys all tomorrow. Thanks so much for coming on, Doug. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. See you later.